There is some breaking news coming out of Brazil because Brazil have sacked their manager Dorival Junior, and we've got Tim Vickery, South American football expert, joining us right now to go through this. It's not really a surprise with what's been going on with Brazil at the minute, Tim. But why did he struggle so much as Brazil national team manager?
Well, the final straw was Tuesday's 4-1 defeat to Argentina. Where Brazil were lucky to get 1 and Argentina were unlucky to get 4. It was a massacre. It was a massacre from start to finish. For me, it was worse than the 7-1, which had that few crazy moments, when Brazil let in like 4 goals in 7 minutes or something. The game against Argentina was a slaughter from start to finish. And in recent times, it's almost like they've been winning games despite the coach, and they lost this one because of the coach. The Thursday before, Vinny Junior got him a goal deep in stoppage time, a wonderful solo goal that beat Colombia, but it wasn't a team. There's no team there. Dorival Junior reminds me a little bit, for those of a certain age and with long memories, there was a little bit of a Graham Taylor about him. Decent bloke, decent record in the club game. You put him up to international football and he looked absolutely out of his depth. And he played his cards because last year, the middle of last year, when you had the Euros, we had the Copa America, and Brazil didn't do very well. They went out in the quarterfinals on penalties, but they didn't do very well. And after every game, he was saying, look, we're great in training. We're getting better. We're getting better. We're getting better. And you can only sustain that for a time, because in the end, people are going to say, well, you're looking great in training. You say you're getting better. When are we going to see it? And we haven't seen it. You've looked at the team in recent times, and they're going to qualify because everyone in South America qualifies now with the expanded World Cup. But Brazil's aim is not to qualify, it's to win the thing. And you looked at this team and you think there's absolutely no way that under this coach, this team are going to win the World Cup. So time for a change.
Tim, can I ask you, what's the fallout been? Like, what's been the feeling around the country? It's great to for you to be there. You can really tell us, what the emotion of the country is after such a humbling defeat. I've seen Rafinha going mad on social media. It seems to have really affected the nation, doesn't it?
Yeah, although they do blot it out and switch off and move on to club football very, very quickly. On Thursday night, last night, we had a massive domestic game in São Paulo, a final. Tomorrow, the Brazilian league starts. On Tuesday, our version of the Champions League starts. So there's so much club football, and club football is the big driver here. The national team gets people really going during the World Cup. For 1 month every 4 years. For the rest of the time, they're more interested. The hardcore fan is much more interested in his club side than he is in the national team. So it was a huge blow and a massive humiliation. But as soon as it ends, or even before, the fan is looking at the fixtures and thinking, oh yeah, when are my club next in action?
Tim, for you, what sort of state is the squad in? We know they've got some talented individuals. Some have called it the weakest Brazil team ever. I can't remember if it was Neymar or Ronaldo, but they said they don't enjoy watching. Was it Ronaldinho? I think it might have been Ronaldinho. Ronaldinho. Yeah. I remember seeing those quotes. I don't enjoy watching them anymore, etc. A lot of scrutiny. What's the state of the squad actually like?
They're a bad team with good players. Hence the fact that all roads lead to the coach. There are problems in some positions, but in goal, at centre back, wingers, any team would want the kind of players that Brazil have got. Think of it from the point of view of the Argentina defence on Tuesday night. And Christian Romero gave him a goal, gifted them a goal. Brazil created absolutely nothing. But before the game, you're thinking, well, Otamendi, he must be 320 now. Yeah. How on earth is he going to cope?
I couldn't believe he was playing.
Indeed, yeah. How on earth is he going to cope with Vinny Junior, Rafinha, Rodrigo of Real Madrid, Savinho of City off the bench, with all of these people running at him at pace? How's he going to cope? But Brazil, you win and lose a game in midfield, and Brazil just had no midfield at all. It was almost like the coach has been treated midfield like an optional extra. And central midfield is a problem position, and this made Tuesday's game all the more bizarre because Argentina are very, very strong in central midfield. Yeah. And if you can't outplay them, you got to outnumber them. But Brazil had no one in that zone of the field. They were outnumbered and outplayed in central midfield, so they never gave a platform to their strikers. A decent coach who has the revolutionary idea of, well, why don't we pick a midfield? I think could go a long, long way with this team, because the attacking talent, especially on the counter-attack, is something very, very special indeed. I wouldn't write them off.
So do you think there's a world? Do you think there's a world here, Tim, where despite everything that we're hearing about Brazil, it feels like there's turmoil, sacking the manager, being battered by Argentina, going into that World Cup in the USA, do you still think that this Brazil side are capable of winning it there as they have done before?
It reminds a lot of people of 2002, where they very nearly didn't qualify. They were quite lucky to qualify, frankly. And then they got the great Ronaldo back, and they ended up winning that World Cup. So there are memories of that. But if it's going to happen this time, there's a lot of improvement. Is Neymar going to be what Ronaldo was in 2002? No. Neymar is 33, and people think of him as a saviour. Can he possibly do it? We don't know. But the big decision now is who's going to coach the team. And they've used up all of their domestic candidates now, with the exception of one, the former Chelsea and Atletico Madrid left-back, Felipe Luis, who a very clever guy, has only recently started coaching, but he's doing very well. Now, if he wants the job, it might be his, but I'm not sure that he does. If not, then we are looking at the first full-time, long-term foreign coach that Brazil have ever had. And that'll be a humiliation. It's been hard enough in England. England have won the World Cup once. Doing it in Brazil, they've won the World Cup 5 times.
Gareth Southgate?
Yeah. There are two main candidates, and there's interesting things in both of them. One is Carlo Ancelotti, who they really wanted, and they thought they had an agreement with until he extended his contract with Real Madrid. His current contract goes up to the World Cup, but we've just had news today, the Spanish tax authorities are after him. So he might be in a hurry to leave Spain. You never know. He is one candidate. The other candidate was a very strong candidate. You might remember in Portuguese. You might remember him from his time at Benfica. Jorge Jesus, big hair, bigger ego. He came across in 2019 and had a few magical months with Flamengo. Extraordinary months. It's the greatest Brazilian club side that people have seen for a long time. You might remember in the final of the Club World Cup, they gave Liverpool quite a good game before Firmino shot them down, and it then ended up losing just by one goal. Jorge Jesus at the moment is coaching in Saudi Arabia. And until the start of the year, this is where it gets interesting, because until the start of the year, he was the coach of Neymar. The reason that Neymar came back to Brazil with Santos was because he fell out with Jorge Jesus, and Jorge Jesus wouldn't register Neymar for the Saudi League. They could register 10 foreign players, and Jorge Jesus said, well, Neymar isn't in our fittest 10 foreign players, so we can't register him. And Neymar got the hump and decided to walk out and come back to Brazil. So can the pair of them work together?
That's the story.
And how important? And how important is Neymar to the Brazilian FA? Are they going to Are they going to phone Neymar and say, well, would you accept Jorge Jesus? So there's all kinds of soap opera narratives going on, gentlemen. We are in for interesting times.
No doubt. Can I ask you if if it were to go to a foreign manager, what do you think the feeling around the Brazilian national support will be? Flex and I were just having a conversation around Thomas Tuchel being the England manager, and Flex was saying that he thinks it's completely fine. I was saying that it doesn't really chime with what I think international football should represent, and I would have preferred Eddie Howe to have got the job. What do you think from what you can pick up there, do you feel like the Brazil national support will be okay with the idea of it going to a foreign manager?
A lot more people will be in your camp, Rory, than will be in Flex's camp. And so he'll be on a hide into nothing, the foreign manager, when he comes in. And there's only one way, and this is football, so there's only one way you can win them over, and that's with results. If results are good, then people will fall in line. But there'll be a lot of people, including a lot of Brazilian coaches, desperate for him to fail. For him to fail, so they can point at him and say, look, you got in a foreign coach and it didn't work, give the job to one of us. So it's a big ask, it's big shoes to step into, to be Brazil's first foreign coach. But as I say, they haven't got a lot of domestic candidates.
That is because Brazil, I remember you just said there that, well, a little bit earlier, that they only basically switch on for that 1 month every 4 years, but make the manager not Brazilian, and then there's going to be riots. I know this is a bad moment for Brazilian football, of course, Tim, but I wanted to ask you just about Rafinha, actually, just as a bit of glimmer of hope. I know, listen, he said some unsavoury things before the game, and the Argentinians let him have it. That's fine, that's football. But in terms of the individual season he's having at Barcelona and what's going on, how good has he been, and how influential can he be alongside the likes of Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo in this rebuild that Brazil need to have, because he's been unbelievable since he's left Leeds.
He's having an unbelievable season, isn't he? But there's obviously an easy point to make here. He plays in front of a midfield. No, there's a midfield there. It's the midfield where you set up the play. It's the midfield where you give platform to your talented players in front of him. And for me, one of the golden rules of football always is that the team makes the stars. If the team is functioning well, if the collective balance of the team is right, then you get full value from the individual talent that you've got. So getting Rafinha firing for Brazil is all about getting a midfield. You know, if they can get a midfield that can set up the play, because on the midfield, I felt so sorry for them. It was Andre of Wolves and Joelinton of Newcastle. Neither of them have got a great deal of international experience.
No.
And they were outnumbered. They're chasing shadows. It just wasn't fair on them, you know. So a coach who can restructure the midfield and get a midfield there that has more people there. So you can't pick all of the talents. You know, you can't pick 4 up front. You can't do it, you know, unless you try and sneak 12 on the field and hope the ref doesn't notice. You know, you're limited to 11. So tough decisions have got to be made. You know, you can't pick all of your talent. You've got to leave some on the bench, and you've got to find a balance for your midfield. If you can find a balance for your midfield, I mean, Vinny, for example, he's missing Toni Kroos, I think, a little bit, because he was such a great supply line. You know, if Alexander-Arnold does go to Real Madrid, I'm fascinated with where he'll play, whether they'll play him as a midfielder to hit the ball long for Vinny. He hasn't really got anyone doing that, you know, from deep for the Brazil side. So Brazil need to rethink their side, get a midfield, and then they'll get full value for the attacking talent that they've got, which no defence will want to face.
This is exactly it, isn't it? Whatever you say about Brazil, whatever's going on, all of the controversy and the issues that they're currently facing, by the time we embark upon that World Cup in the States in 2026, they're basically going to be everyone's favourites for the tournament. Don't you think that's how we're going to see it by the time we get there?
Well, they weren't going into 2002, and they became during the course of the competition. And they won 5 World Cups knowing that the World Cup goes to the team that grows during the competition. You know, the World Cup is like time speeded up. Teams can suddenly fall apart, or they can suddenly come together. And at the moment, I mean, they're looking at shambles, and they've looked at shambles really for the last 2 years. But if they can find their mojo, you know, if they can find the collective balance, then, you know, it's well worth looking at the odds now and thinking,
get in there early.
Yes, it's well worth it. You know, I wouldn't bet my house on it. I wouldn't even bet a room on it. But I bet your house on it.
Nice one, Tim. You just want us to be homeless. That's
I'll have to buy one first.
Tim, thank you very much for joining us and giving us the lowdown there on Brazil. Tim Vickery, South American football expert there, bringing us the breaking news that Brazil have sacked their manager and looking for a replacement very, very soon. Absolutely amazing news after they got absolutely destroyed by Argentina 4-1.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.